14 names in a real deck, just to show off how useful it can be if you really juice it out. Machina, everybody's favorite powerhouse, is completely running everybody else over. You have 4, 4, 3, 4, 4, 3, 4, 3, or 4. Another 4. All of these are 4s because you saw the 3. Again, less important what's in the deck, more important how it gets built out and the ratio of different numbers. Again, you have the Clash Grounds serving as your 3s, but everything else here is your 4s, which means that if you want to draw a piece of equipment or accessories, as they're called in Alpha Clash, you have 4 different names, 4 of each. You have 16 out of 50 of pulling one. Granted, that assumes that you haven't actually pulled another one, in which case that would be really weird. It also means that even on the exact opposite end as your little accessories that Machina likes to throw at people, you have your high ends or the Machina Heavy Brawler. You really want to see that in order to keep recycling the shrapnel. For the Flare Explosive Combatant, you really want to see that because you can use the shrapnel to ding a 3 defense down to 2, and then Flare will just absolutely fry it. Or for the 7s, because you have the Haven to make sure that you're getting your resources down quickly, and you can get one of these. Just slam 6 damage into something's face. So that's what it looks like on a high end, and kind of proof that is what you might want to think about when making a deck on a more competitive level, rather than a more magnate budget casual. Now, here is another different pattern. This one's actually a pestilence. He's got a 4. He's got a 4. 4. A lot of 4s. But some 3s. More 4s. And more 3s. Now here, you're going to have more names in a build like this, but this is still fairly solid. Rather than having 2 3-ofs and literally everything else is a 4, you're going to have 6, which is the next breakdown, which adds exactly one more name, but is the next best way to ensure that everything here is at its most likely to draw. Because at worst, if you really need one of these tech pieces, 3 out of 50, and you have 6 different 3-of tech pieces, that's about the best odds you can have for something like this. And it also becomes a lot more interesting when you see how the sideboard works and how some of the siding patterns will work out in the end. You're going to have a group of 3, a group of 3, and then 4 one-ofs that also correspond with these up here. So, what you could potentially do in cases like this, let's say these 3-ofs are things that you know they're going to want to be 3-ofs. Like, you might not necessarily need a 4th Magnate the Tyrant if you've got Kagans, and if you've got alternative strikes in here in order to take care of some of the relics that you don't like. Whereas Pestilence World Degrader, you generally only need one on the field at a time, and having multiples on the field at a time is kind of redundant because all you need him for is making sure that the portal's in whatever state that you want it in, usually open, being Pestilence. And so, these are your variable points. Let's say in match 1, you're hitting your sideboard and you decided that this flare was absolutely pointless in that last matchup. You were up against Machina, you played down your flare, and then he played down a shrapnel and knocked out your flare for free every single time. And then you played out more flares later, and then Machina Savage Brawler brought back the shrapnel and kept killing your flares over and over again. You're done with flare for whatever reason. So flare is out in the sideboard. Instead of flare, you can up these to 4. And hey, look at what that did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 names. And what did we learn about 13 names before? It's the most likely way to get whatever you need. But this time, you're in the edge of, this time you know that you didn't need that. You could also have not needed that. Or that. Or that. Any of those could get, any of those 3-ofs could get completely taken out of your deck and then be used to buff out the rest of your 3s to force. The reason Pestilence likes to do it this way is because Pestilence has a lot of answers, and so that kind of leans Pestilence towards having more different names in his deck. Because sometimes you'll really want Solar Smash. Like if you're up against a Mean Streak player and they got lots of Mean Streak Blink of an Eye, Solar Smash kills Blink of an Eye instantly. Literally. Versus, let's say you were having issues with somebody who was kind of being stingy on the portal, like an alpha player, and they weren't opening it for you, you could have Warp Potentiator to be really valuable, to open the portal for yourself. That way you're infectious. Doesn't force you to discard a card. Or let's say you're up against Haven, and Haven's being really annoying, or even a Pestilence Mirror, and you want to make sure that you can get in with your stuff and not lose a point of damage each attack. 4 flare. Or if you're up against War, and they're playing a lot of 1-2s, or even anybody else running a lot of Havens, who also like running 1-2s. Favorable outcome. Get rid of theirs. Make a token on your side. All of these things that we're at 3 of could make a case, but you didn't know yet. You had to wait until you were actually in the game. Then once you're in the game and get to the sideboard, then you can decide. At that point, remove 1, max the rest.